Hello, everyone, and welcome to BluChip's Insights with the Experts, our exclusive video series where we're joined by experts from all fields who share with us their amazing professional stories, which we hope will inform student athletes about some of the exciting industries that await them when they join the workforce. Some of those stories are inspirational as well, and I think that applies to our guest this week. We're joined today by Will Weiss. Will is Principal Technical Program Manager at SiriusXM, and Will's going to explain exactly what that means here in a moment. Will's story is really a case study in how the pursuit of a dream can open doors to so many unexpected places. Will, welcome to Insights with the Experts.
Thanks, Brian. Great to be here. Looking forward to our conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, you bet. So why don't you start, Will, if you could, by telling us about your early career and how you got your start?
Yeah. So I went to school. I went to Ithaca College, and I majored in journalism with a broadcast concentration. I had all designs on being a play-by-play announcer, ideally for baseball or hockey or both. And I thought I was going to land in at like some affiliate in Pocatello, Idaho, or one of the small markets, riding the buses, doing the minor league circuits, paying dues on my dues. But it ended up not working out in that way. About a couple of months after graduation, I had met up again with some Ithaca College alumni that I had met at a networking event earlier in the year during I think my winter break, and they had an opening at ABC Sports for the .com, and this is like back then. This is dial-up was still a thing.
Oh yeah.
It was like, Netscape was still a company. I don't know that AOL had bought it yet. It was like Netscape 2 or 3, because we still had to create a Netscape version of the website on a daily basis. But yeah, I had gotten the gig at ABC Sports Online after interviewing and going through that process. I'd started out as an independent contractor, and my first job was as an assistant editor of abcsports.com. And at the time, there was a lot of the term that was used quite often was synergy with ESPN, because ESPN had just bought ABC, and Disney had bought ESPN and ABC, and was folding the brand together. So I started out with on college football. There was a BCS football site. It was the first year of the BCS. And from there, I co-hosted an audio chat show, which was like the earliest version of a podcast with Terry Bowden. We did that every week. He was our lead studio analyst at the time. So we did that every week, and I'd be going through the message boards to get questions, wrote a script, the whole thing. And we did it a half hour weekly. We previewed the big games of the weekend, and particularly the games that were going to be televised on ABC and the regional affiliates. Then did NHL, college basketball, the Little League World Series microsite on ESPN.com. The year that the Bronx team with Danny Almonte were in Williamsport, I was the lead editor and content producer of that site. And then my last foray at ABC was the lead editor of the Monday Night Football website. That led to me working at Yes. My boss at ABC had left and then went to the Yes Network. I was still freelance. There were organizational restructuring, buyouts and stuff. I wasn't full-time. I was still a contractor. And I told him, I said, hey, if anything opens up over there, I don't know what's happening with me. Keep me in mind. He did. And that's how I landed at Yes. You'll see this kind of theme as we get into talking about networking later on. It plays out. So yeah, was it yes for started there through 6 weeks before the network launched, and we launched the website in about 3 weeks. With put together enough content to launch the website, and then kept building upon it. And I was there for 5 years, grew the audience from 0 to 4 million page views a month. And we took a lot of what we did at ABC to Yes, where we had reporters on site for the Yankees home games. We went to the big series on the road, Shea Stadium at the time for the Mets, and Fenway for the Red Sox. And because at that time, Yes Network wasn't on Cablevision yet, that whole first season in 2002, Yes Network and Cablevision were fighting. We were doing a service. So we felt like we were doing a public service by providing the daily and nightly content and video, audio clips, maybe giving the Cablevision subscribers who had solid web access something that maybe they weren't going to get someplace else. And then from there, I pivoted, went into the ad business for a couple of years, and then went back into sports at a company called New Lion, which had bought a company called Jump TV. So it was I was working on college official athletics websites, doing their content creation. We had the content management system, so I was doing demonstrations there. And on the professional side, New Lion had all of the subscription streaming services for the leagues. They had NHL Game Center, which is now on ESPN Plus, MLS Match Day Live, NFL International, so NFL Rewind, and then League Pass internationally. Eventually, all 22 was in that service as well, and also NBA League Pass International. I was involved in either demonstrating, working on, or in the case of NBA, helping to land those contracts.
So you were really on the cutting edge, the very beginning of all of this streamed sports programming.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. And it was, working in sports was, I didn't get to do the play-by-play stuff. Now, like while I was at Yes, I got to do some things. I did sideline reporting for an Ivy League football game. Still have the DVD of it. Yeah, it was a Yale Princeton game at Princeton. And I also got to do a bunch of what at the time Chris Sheeran, who co-hosts pre and post game studio, and I think he's the lead Nets studio host, has been for quite some time. We had Mike and the Mad Dog. We simulcasted Mike and the Mad Dog every day, and there was
for our guests who aren't from the Northeast.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. So Mike and the Mad Dog was the afternoon drive radio program on WFAN, the leading terrestrial sports radio station in the country. It's co-hosted by Mike Francesa, who now has his own podcast, and Chris Mad Dog Russo, who is now on First Take with Stephen A. Smith. Right. So we would do a 3-minute sports sprint leading into Mike and the Mad Dog, or just be highlights of the night before. And I got to anchor that several times over the last couple of years that I was at Yes. So I still got to tap into the sports casting that I had done in college, and thought that maybe there was going to be something to come of it, but doing it every day, it got to a place where, growing up a Yankee fan, great, I get to work for the Yankees, and that's awesome. But not every Yankees Red Sox game is Game 7 of the 2003 or 2004 ALCS. Come on, we're trying to draw blood from a stone here. Can we not? And that kind of started to wear on me.
What do you mean by that? Meaning it felt like a job?
Yeah, it started to feel like a job. And okay, it's the baseball season is long.
Yeah.
can we really do this for 180 games or 200 games, counting spring training and playoffs? It got to
Yeah,
the
I guess
point
if you're
where
covering the Yankees at that time, it's probably closer to 200 games a season, right?
when you count 25 to 30 spring training games and X number, 162 regular season games, then however many in the playoffs, it got to the point where the first week of October, I would root for them to lose so that I could get a couple of weeks of sleep leading into the basketball season.
I thought you weren't supposed to root as a member of the press.
You're not supposed to, but as a person, knowing that, I was rooting to not have 18-hour days anymore.
So for our viewers who see what I see on the screen right now, and hear about a 25 plus year career, they don't line up, because I always kid with you, Will, like you literally look the same way you did when we first met. I mean, you look like you're 18 years old.
A little grayer, and I can actually
look great
beard now.
So let's pick it up where we are today. So we talked about your title at the outset. Can you describe your role at SiriusXM? What does it mean to be a project manager today?
Yeah. So principal, the first word is, it would be the equivalent of a senior manager or director on a management track. Excuse me. So it's a high senior level individual contributor. Like your 1B level all-star on a sports team. And as a technical program manager, the technical side of it, I'm working with software engineers, so I have to have some technical acumen to be able to put all the pieces together and figure out who needs to do what by when. And
some of the New Lion experience probably helped there, yeah.
New Lion, Wrightster, Uyala, BAMTech and Disney, which we'll get into. And even going back, ABC, Yes Network, BBE, the assignment editing. It took me probably until 6 to 9 months into my tenure at Uyala. By that point, I'm like almost 15 years into my career to realize that I'd always been a project manager, and that's how my brain works. It was just like a eureka moment. So the project manager is more on the micro level, working with a specific team in a certain discipline, and you need to have some knowledge of what's going on outside of your lane, but you don't go out of your lane. As a program manager, which is where I am now, your lane is a lot broader. In project management parlance, we call that moving from an E, where you have your defined lanes, to a T. So the T being you're going across, you're casting a wider net, and you're looking more strategically, and then figuring out which vertical to zoom in. It's almost like if you think of the Parthenon in Greece, where you've got the building and the columns.
Sure.
So I work with, I'm in a specific discipline at SiriusXM called platform engineering, where our customers are the rest of the software engineers in the company. And we're looking at making their jobs easier. So my job is to make sure that my teammates across platform engineering teams, that they can do their jobs more easily, so that all of the other engineers in the company can do their jobs more easily, which will provide a better experience for SiriusXM subscribers.
Got it. Okay. So can you walk us through your average day, if you could, at SiriusXM?
So generally I get up around 6. I have 2 kids, 15 and 12. So I'm helping them get ready for school, help get them on the bus. I'm in a hybrid work situation. So on the days that I work from home, once the kids are on the bus, I'll go do a workout. I try to work out, at least lifting weights and stuff, and strength and conditioning, at least 2 days a week. And I found that to be, in addition for the health benefits, physical health benefits, improving my mental health, very, very therapeutic. So I make sure I do that a couple of days a week. And then stretching, because I'm older now and I have a bad back. And then I try to log on around 9:30 in the morning. And on average, I have about 6 or 7 or more meetings per day. Because as a program manager, I'm overseeing a number of different projects, at least 2 or 3 at one time. So there's a lot of back and forth and communication and context switching that I have to do. So I wouldn't say there's an average type of day. There are different levels of stress based on, is there a deadline? Did something break that we have to pivot from normal work that we were doing to now have to go into firefighting mode? And
so you're a fixer in many cases.
Or I have to put people in position to pivot, and like they'll come to me and say, okay, what do we need to work on next? What's our move? And even if I don't have decision-making authority, I have a good idea of where the level of importance lies. So a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis is a combination of strategic and tactical communication.
Okay. So obviously you're aware that the majority of our audience is comprised of student athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And you grew up in sports. I know you played sports as a kid, and obviously professionally, you've got a wonderful story. Talk about teamwork and how that's critical, both in sports and then applicable in the professional world.
No, it's the most important element of what we do. The cliches, together each accomplishes more. There's no I in team. They exist for a reason, but how teamwork is achieved and how you maintain it and sustain it is really what makes small teams, large teams successful. And I talked about strategic and tactical communication. It's really rooted in communication. Do you understand how do you understand what everybody's job is? Like, my job as a program manager, because I'm operating at a higher level, I feel like my number one job is to understand what everybody else's roles and responsibilities are.
You have to know the playbook.
Are supposed to be. Not even knowing the playbook, but what are the X's and O's for each person in the playbook, and then what are the contingencies if we have to call an audible?
Sure. So would you say that's kind of like being a quarterback, where you know what the play is, but you also know what every member of the offense needs to do on that play? Is that fair?
It's equal parts quarterback or signal caller if you're the line, on the defensive side, point guard, coordinator, whether it's offense or defense, and you're drawing the X's and O's, head coach, cheerleader. It's
good.
If you understand the psychology of what everybody's supposed to do, like, I'm not going to go in and do everybody else's job, but I need to know what everybody's job is, so I know where there could be potential collisions, where there are interdependencies, where there are gaps. So if I know all of those things as a program manager, I can then help the team understand what everybody's job is. And you hear athletes or orchestras. It's the other analogy, analog I use is conductor of an orchestra. And all the different teams are individual musicians, or then on a larger plane, instrument sections. If we all understand what everybody's part is, then it's easier to adapt, pivot. If a mistake is made, somebody knows that the other person knows what to do to correct the mistake, or you're holding someone accountable. A lot of what I do too is, like, within the concept of teamwork and the constructive teamwork, is create an environment of positivity, number one, a level of discipline, not like, oh, you should do this, but just like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do here. I know what I'm supposed to do there. And I'm regimented in that. We have a deadline. Here's what we have to do to get there. But if we have to swerve, we can. And then understanding the difference between responsibility and accountability. You are responsible for your task and your work and your job in that given moment, but the accountability is rooted in, I got you.
Okay.
So it's like, again, it's micro to macro in that.
Yeah, and all of the parts coming together, making sure the parts are cohesive and uniformly like focused on one goal at one time. So
the best example I
very
of that lately is, and I've talked about it with my own teammates, is from Super Bowl, not this most recent Super Bowl, the Chiefs against the Eagles. Jordan Love, the Chiefs sacked Jordan Love. It was a strip sack, fumble return for a touchdown. And Jordan Love, there was a camera shot of Jordan Love along the sidelines going across.
Jalen Hurts. Don't confuse
Jordan Love. Jeez, yes. Jalen Hurts. Thank you for the correction. Jalen Hurts going to his offensive line and saying, "That was my bad. Don't worry about it. We'll pick it up." It's that kind of mentality that if after what could have potentially been a momentum-changing play where the rest of the team gets down, okay, what does Jalen Hurts know? They're getting the ball right back.
Well, that's a good
hang there.
Yeah.
So he's imparting a level of self-belief to the rest of the team, and that's accountability, that's cheerleading, that's positivity, that's teamwork.
Okay, so then that's a good segue. Are there any examples you can share where your ability to lead and bring the team together to collaborate helped you and the team achieve success in a particular project?
Yeah, I mean, there are many over the course of my career, but the one that I continually go back to is the launch of ESPN Plus. And
we didn't touch on that. Please.
Yeah, so the launch of ESPN Plus, I wasn't working directly in sports. I was at BAMTech, which at the time was an offshoot of MLB Advanced Media. They had done MLB at Bat, MLB.TV. They had picked up NHL Game Center and started. They had done a deal with Eurosport. They were working on HBO Go and HBO Now. Did Game of Thrones as well. We had started. I got hired in May of 2017, and I took on ESPN Plus. At the time, it was called Multisport. It wasn't even a thing, and we were building it uniquely. As our own. Disney had only a minority stake in BAMTech at the time. And we get 3 months in, we're about 60% done. And Disney purchases an extra 42% stake in BAMTech to obtain a majority share, 75%. Project gets paused for the better part of a month. We don't know what's going on. We started to talk to ESPN about branding and all of that. Beginning of September rolls around right after Labor Day. There's a big summit type meeting in New York, and ESPN presents their team from ESPN presents their vision of what ESPN Plus is going to be. And we were all like, wait, what?
Didn't jive, huh?
Well, it wasn't that. It was like, we could have been preparing for this for a month. And it felt like we were unprepared. Like, that was the thing. Like, if I had to do one thing over with that project, among others, the biggest thing I would want to do over was figure out how we get ourselves prepared to kick off the project in a way that didn't leave us feeling blindsided. But we were able to overcome that. So that's where it gets to the teamwork and all of those things.
Sure.
I was the lead program manager at BAMTech working on it, working across all the software engineering teams, product, reporting up to executives, senior executives. It was it was the most visible project in the company at the time. And I was confident going into it because I had worked on that project and that product back at New Line. We had worked on the UK version of it. It was called ESPN Player. So I knew what it was supposed to be. So that gave me insight into working with product. And I was able to have influence or lead by influence of saying, okay, here's what it looked like here. And I also knew from working with ESPN, both at actually working for ABC and ESPN, but New Lion, and then I was the project manager and professional services at Uyala when the video player on ESPN.com and mobile, it was the Uyala video player. So I was the direct contact to ESPN there. So I'd worked with them.
You were really the ideal person to run.
Yeah, and I volunteered for it. So I was like, let's do this. So there was all of that, and I was able to take my knowledge of ESPN along with what the product was to help bring people together. Where my teammates informed me was, what are their jobs? So they helped inform me on what they needed to be doing and helped educate me on, okay, here's what the platform needs to be. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's what the data flow is going to be. Here's what the signal flow. Here's what the architecture needs to look like. And we were able to.
What's the signal flow? Just sorry, sidebar question. What's the signal flow?
Oh, okay. Good question. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Getting into jargon. When there is a broadcast, now, whether it's on TV or it's being streamed, it's just a screen. It all happens the same way. There is a signal source at the location. So what is that source? From the cameras going up to some kind of distribution center. And then how is all of that getting encoded, processed, and then how is it being married to graphics, stats, other programming data to then be prepared for distribution and presentation on whatever screen you're watching.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So with all of that, it was not just working with the BAMTech personnel, it was working with ESPN personnel. We had different, we had to prepare our software development kits for the applications. We had different methodologies of how we did things. So there were different teams working on different timelines that all had to be smushed together. And what ended up happening was we launched ESPN Plus in 7 months. And starting from a full reset with a lot of traffic jams, bumper cars, rock'em sock'em robots,
Now you're dating yourself.
And they kick out.
Now you're dating yourself with that last one.
Yeah, 2 counts and then a kick out. In a wrestling match. But
so that was a major career triumph.
Because right? ESPN at the time had not ever done any. Their business model has been ad driven on one level, but the subscription side of it is ESPN taking, and I encourage everybody to read the big, I think it's the Big Show by Miller and Shales, James Andrew Miller and Tom Shales, the ESPN book. No, the Big Show's a different one, the ESPN book. And they talk about all of this, the beginnings of ESPN's business model, taking a share of subscription by having ESPN become part of your cable package and being on the sports tier, and then getting ad revenue on top of that. This was the first pure subscription streaming offering that ESPN did, at least domestically. So it was a huge deal. It was extremely disruptive to ESPN. There were a number of people inside of ESPN that did not want this because they thought it was cannibalizing their business model.
So folks generally associated with the on-air product.
Yes, or the notion of TV. Because I mean, even though it was 2018, most people's idea of streaming was Netflix.
Okay. Yeah. So still very early in the context of connected TV streaming to the large display in the living room.
Yeah, and it was also a threat to business development and acquisition team members who were accustomed to negotiating carriage deals with cable companies. Because as the younger demographics were starting to quote unquote cut the cord,
right,
those three words were cursed when we were working on ESPN Plus. So like there was it was about, I would say it was a 50-50 split of people that were excited about working on the product and people that were working on the product. This isn't within BAMTech, but just, more generally within Disney, who were either working on it or observing it begrudgingly.
Okay.
But that project and that program set me up at BAMTech for the next 4.5, 5 years that I was there working on Disney Plus, the UFC. I worked on the projects that did the recommendation engine for ESPN Plus, and then UFC pay-per-view, and then moved on to Disney Plus, working on recommendations, search, content, and metadata, and then later international expansion as I continued to move through the organization and the services expanded.
So a great opportunity for you to establish yourself in a very large media organization as it was evolving from a traditional media organization into more of a digital platform.
Yeah, and I also didn't want to continue working. I didn't want my career at BAMTech and Disney, however long it was going to be. I didn't want to just be the ESPN Plus guy. I wanted to branch, not branch out, but I wanted to evolve my learning and work on something else, because I also knew that Disney Plus was going to be huge. So it was an opportunity to work with different people, work on something else. And then I was fortunate enough to move into a management role, which was something that I had wanted for a while, but maybe, and had earlier in my career, but maybe didn't have the maturity to know how to do it or really know what it meant to be good at it. And my last 1.5 years at Disney, I was able to be a people manager, and people
great
I was good at it. So and they loved having me as a manager. So that's all the validation I needed.
So you've had a really interesting career, Will. So from being on the field, right, as a member of the media, to the locker room, to the digital and technology laboratory, you've worked at a variety of different companies. And obviously along the way, you've certainly learned how the value of your network really helps advance your career. So talk to the student athletes who are watching right now, Will, about the importance of building relationships, not only with their coaches and their teammates and their professors and instructors, but as they look out across the internship opportunities and eventual workforce opportunities. Talk about the importance of building a network and why it's never too early to start doing so.
Yeah, it's a great point you make. We used to have a saying, don't burn bridges, because that person might be your boss someday. And there's a lot of truth to that. But I talked about how the alumni network at Ithaca College helped set me up for my first job. My boss at my first job, that relationship that we had built led me to working at Yes for 5 years. So, my entire 20s were basically spent having the same manager. And that was a great deal of growth, and we still keep in touch today. I consider him a mentor. He's just a great dude. Full disclosure, working with you at BBE, our relationship went from going from Yes going to BBE. That's networking. There was only one job that I've ever had in my career that I didn't get based on network. There was a former colleague who had worked at the company, but I had gotten seduced by a job description, got the job, negotiated the salary I wanted, and I knew it was a mistake from the first day. And
Interesting.
yeah, there were a number of other factors. At the time, personal and professional. Personal affected professional, and professional affected personal, but there wasn't as much of a shade area of the Venn diagram for those notions as there is now. And it was more difficult to compartmentalize. I lasted 14 months in that job, and I can look back on it now and say it was probably the most important 14 months of my career because I failed so hard. I failed myself. I felt like I let down my family. I felt like I let down my colleagues, and I felt like the company that I was working for at the time, we didn't have enough of a mutual understanding for me to give them the best of me. So it took me a while to understand that me being let go, and it's the only time I've ever been fired professionally, for me to recognize that they had done me a favor. And in order to appreciate the second half of my career, I needed to go through what I did in the middle. So from that point, next job I got, former client at New Line, networked, boom, that happened. BAMTech happened through connections. From when I was working at Yes, and MLB Advanced Media took over web infrastructure of yesnetwork.com. One of the project managers from 2006 called me and was like, can you do an interview? I was like, wait, what? Like, that was one of the only times it came in reverse. And luckily that was the only place I really wanted to work. So it was great. And then, since then, now it's Sirius, and even within there, helping bring people together. I firmly believe in paying it forward also. So many people have helped me over the course of my career, yourself included, not just when we were colleagues in the various entities, but outside of that. Conversations like this, informal peer-to-peer mentor-mentee relationships, all of that is a part of networking. Writing references for people. I don't post a lot of quote unquote personal or like self-promotional or industry bloggy type stuff on LinkedIn, because I'm not trying to build a personal brand on a thing. I would rather be on the sidelines of that or be behind the scenes. I would rather direct message somebody, or if I'm going to make a public post on LinkedIn, it's because I'm going to share a job opening that we have. And then behind the scenes, I'm going to recommend 2 or 3 people for that position. Or if it's another job in the industry, I'm going to do the same thing. I have recruiters contact me a lot, and I'm like, I'm not looking, but here are 5 people who I know are fantastic, and you should be talking to them. So like, that's the kind of thing. Like, it's as you advance in your career, your network isn't just about how people can help you. It's how can you leverage
Right,
your network to help
Yeah, good
everybody
point.
else.
Yeah, good point. We all want to help each other, right? And any person who's successful in any line of work will tell you that he or she didn't do it alone, likely couldn't have done it alone, right? So that's a really important message, and I appreciate that. Last item from me, Will. So as you pointed out, you and I have worked together in the past, long time ago, longer certainly than I would want to admit, and maybe you, even though I don't look like a teenager anymore. You were one of those guys, very few people who I've ever worked with who, and you may disagree, and that's okay, who just handled pressure so well. Sometimes you externally show it, and you know we've all been there and done that. But generally, you had a high pressure job, and you just bottled it up and made it work for you in such a compelling and effective way. Talk about, again, with our audience being student athletes who have kind of grown up dealing with pressure. Talk about that skill, that soft skill, something you don't necessarily see on a resume as a hiring manager, and its importance for the professional.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's probably the question. Like you see it on preambles to job descriptions, someone who thrives under pressure and all of that. But what does it really mean? So I never asked that question until I got older. What I come back to is there's a plaque on the entranceway to the Arthur Ashe Stadium at the National Tennis Center. And it's a quote from Billie Jean King, whose name is on the National Tennis Center. It says, "Pressure is a privilege." And it had that those four words have become a go-to quote for me because it applies in so many different venues. And when I was younger, when the first third of my career, really, when we were working together, I delivered under pressure, but I did not believe that pressure was a privilege. I used to succeed in pressure situations by being overly focused on the result and thinking that because failure was not an option, both in my own creation of failure not being an option, but also the circumstances around us that created failure not being an option, it was, we have to succeed or else. And that only makes it worse.
Probably not that healthy.
Yeah, it's not healthy. It created a lot of anxiety. And it takes yourself out of the equation. So I'd also feel like,
what do you mean by that? What do you mean it takes you out of the equation?
so you get like, or actually, I'm sorry, it's the reverse. It puts more of the focus on you.
Okay.
And you end up like in a team situation. Well, if my team's not doing it, failure's not an option. I have to pick it up, and I have to do the job of three other people. And it's like the old Bugs Bunny cartoon. I'm dating myself again. There's that, pitching, Bugs Bunny, playing first base, Bugs Bunny, second base, Bugs Bunny. You can't do that. No one person can play all 9 positions on a baseball.
Yeah.
So it also, I would get imposter syndrome. Am I good enough to do this? And you, in a pressure situation, pressure being a privilege means you're not afraid to take the risk of failing. That's one interpretation of it. But by flipping the script and saying pressure is a privilege, to me, it means I've earned the right to feel this way. I've earned the right to be put in a pressure situation. Someone trusts me to be the person to deliver in pressure situation. This is why I'm here. So like in my current role at SiriusXM, many dozens of the same people, of the people that I'm working with are people that I worked with at BAMTech and Disney, who worked where we basically built the streaming landscape of what's happened the last 6, 7, 8 years. We've won. We know how to do that. So we come to Sirius and it's like, awesome. Let's do that again. We know how to do this. Let's show these people how to do it. It's like when Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski went to Tampa Bay. We know how to win Super Bowls in New England. Let's do it in Tampa. And they did. The 1994 New York Rangers. They were called the Edmonton Rangers. Islander fan. Yes, they were the Edmonton Rangers, but it is for a reason. Glenn Sather, the head coach of those Edmonton Oilers, was their GM. You had Mark Messier and then a number of other players, Adam Graves, Esa Tikkanen, who won Stanley Cups in Edmonton. You do it one place, you know how to establish that culture of winning and get people to appreciate what it means to deliver under that kind of scrutiny and pressure. So for me, it helps you relax. If like when you flip the script now and you think about the previous way is a selfish way of thinking about it. It puts more of the focus on you. But in order to really deliver in a pressure situation, unless you're playing an individual sport, it's team oriented. So how do you just get everybody loose? But on the other side of that, why are there upsets? Think about the teams that haven't been there before, or wild card teams, young teams that are just like, why are they playing fast and loose? Why are they playing like they have no pressure? Because they're thinking that pressure is a privilege. Let's just go have fun. Let's go rely on what we know how to do. We're playing ball. We're balling. That's it. And that flips the script and gets the other team or whoever's on the other side to maybe get a little bit tense. And and individually, that also helped me. We didn't talk about this when I was on for my Jeopardy appearance earlier in season 41.
Shame on me.
It's okay. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
So there were a lot. What the best you can do is prepare your knowledge and understand, okay, how does the game work? How does the board work? What wagering strategy and all of those things. But it's everything else that trips people up. Maybe people haven't been on TV before. Maybe people aren't used to buzzer timing or wearing a microphone or having makeup or, oh, wow, all of the lights. And they get caught up in everything else than just, okay, I'm there to just play a game. I'm there to play Jeopardy. So I looked at pressure as a privilege there, and Ken Jennings in our rehearsal said what helped him was to just let go of the outcome. And I was like, whoa, I'm outcome oriented. How do I do that? Pressure is a privilege. All I can do is play my game. There is more that is out of my control than is in my control. So what can I control? I can control my breathing. I can control my emotions. I can control my heart rate. All of those things. Took a couple of deep breaths, stretched a little bit, and then once the lights came on and the game started, you forget you're on TV and all of those things. So it's a long-winded way of saying, and just relax and have fun. And
you're very modest.
Yeah, it is a privilege.
You were successful a couple of times on Jeopardy. Talk about that briefly if you can.
Yeah, I will say the first win I got lucky because the defending champion found all 3 daily doubles and didn't get any of the daily double clues correct. So I went with the volume play, get as many clues correct as I could, especially high volume, high dollar value questions. I answered 20 questions correctly, got none wrong except for the final. Won that in a runaway. The second game was also a runaway win, and a runaway in Jeopardy means you have so big of a lead that the second place person, even when they double their money, can't catch you. And I was leading going into final Jeopardy, the last question in my third game. And this still kind of eats away at me. It's the equivalent of missing a layup or a 2-foot putt. It was a clue that I should have been able to get and know, and I overthought it, and I ended up getting beaten. But still,
But a two-time champion.
two-time champion. That was always a dream, being on Jeopardy. Going there, like when I had qualified 20 years ago, had I gotten the call, I think I arrogantly would have gone there expecting to win, or been really disappointed and angry if I didn't. And this time around, I just wanted to not embarrass myself. I just wanted to play well, and if I got beaten, I got beaten.
And you recognize it as a privilege.
And I recognized it. The privilege, it was the other way to look at it, is starting from a place of gratitude. I was thankful for the opportunity to be there. I didn't think I was going to get the call. My eligibility was a couple of months from expiring. And it was just like, yeah, I've wanted to do this my entire life. Let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah. Congratulations. Well, Will, I want to express my gratitude for the wonderful session you've shared with me and with our viewers. What a great story. And there's a lot to unpack here for the student athlete who's thinking about their future and entering the workforce. But so many great stories in here, and hopefully lessons for our audience. I thank you again. It's great to see you. Much fortune and success going forward, as I know you'll have and achieve.
Thanks, Brian. And if for any students want to follow up and contact me directly, I'm open to that.
Great. Thanks again, Will.
You got it.
Good stuff. That was great.
Thanks, man. Sorry we didn't cap it at 30 minutes.
My bad on Jeopardy, man. Was that in our questions?
It wasn't. But like, okay. I meant to say, when I was out there, I actually treated it like a sport.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's a long day.